All right, the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit is underway at the KICC in the county of Nairobi. My colleague Nduta Mukami is on that bit. Nduta, good afternoon.
Yeah, face me. And a very good afternoon to you, Irene Muchoma. We are coming to you live from the Kenyatta International Convention Center for the first day of the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit. This is a summit that is bringing around stakeholders, different heads of state, just to discuss matters on agriculture and how the country and the continent at large can incorporate the use of fertilizer. And if I can just give you a brief summary of some of the plenary discussions that had been talked about in the morning. We saw the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mithika Linturi, here in the morning, and he talked about how the country, under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, prioritize the fertilizer subsidy program. And those are some of the things that have been discussed right now. And right now I am joined by the CEO of the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid and Tropics area. Her name is Dr. Rebi Harawa. Good morning, Dr. Rebi. Welcome. This is KBC Channel 1. Thank you. And if you can just give us a brief summary of the highlights that have been discussed in the morning and what we're doing as the African continent to propagate the use of fertilizer.
This summit is a very important summit for Africa food and nutritional security. We cannot achieve our self-food sufficiency without feeding our soils right. So as we have heard, that this is the time that people are looking at how can we improve our soils using fertilizer, but also integrating with other organic sources. So the summit itself is talking about fertilizer and soil health. If we bring this together, we can be able to boost our crop productivity. KICC, we are one of the technical institutions that is providing the technical how farmers can actually improve the use of fertilizer. For example, we provide soil testing services where farmers can test the soil, knowing the amount of fertilizer they need to put, but also integrating with other soil fertility sources. For example, we need farmers to integrate fertilizer with animal manure. We need farmers to rotate their cereal crops, sorghum with groundnuts, sorghum with pigeon peas, in order to improve soil fertility. So this is really the right time that brings all hands on deck and making sure that our farmers are equipped with the knowledge on how to improve soil health.
Dr. Rebi, some of the things that came about from the plenary discussions were why 17 years later, because we saw the Abuja Declaration on the use of fertilizer come up in 2006, and some of the policy makers talked about the delay in implementation. So it has been 17 years now for us to now incorporate some of the things that had been talked about. What will be different from what was discussed in Abuja and now what is being discussed here in Nairobi?
Just the headline itself, Abuja 2006, it was about fertilizer summit. Now we are talking about soil health. We need to make the soils healthier. They need to have good water holding capacity. We need to make sure that we are feeding them the right mix of nutrients. Fertilizer, as I mentioned, needs to be guided by testing the soil, knowing how much you need to apply. Some of the soils, like in Kenya, western part, they are acidic. We need to apply lime. We need to apply the right mix of fertilizers so that we don't continue degrading the soils. In 2006, there were probably more people just talking about soils and policymakers. Today, we are talking about even crops institutions like ourselves. We need to make sure that the right soils, they meet with the right crops of varieties. We need to talk about water management, really talking about soil from the whole landscape approach. We have private sector today. They are looking at opportunities, for example, markets. If farmers are going to improve their fertility, improve their productivity, the surplus needs to go to the right market. So it's really all the actors on the value chain that today are talking about soil fertility and soil health in totality. That's the big difference from 2006. And I believe now we are ready to take off.
And now, even as we finish, Dr. Rebi, maybe you can just talk about the 10-year action plan that is coming up that African countries are required to now work with.
The 10-year action plan is going to bring the policymakers to chart the way forward on the policy side. The technical institutions like KICC and many other research institutions, the CAROLs, we are talking of private sector farmer organization. And within this, we have deliverables for each and every year in these 10 years to make sure that this is not just going to be a talk show, but we need to walk the talk in the next 10 years.
Irene Muchuma, you have heard it from the horse's mouth. That is Dr. Rebi Harawa. She is the CEO for the KICC. And some of the discussions that we will be following up on will be on the implementation of the 10-year action plan. Our farmers also are being encouraged to switch to extensive land farming practices that will ensure they're able to incorporate the use of fertilizer with their crops, as well as other discussions that will be coming about. I will be taking you back to studio, Muchuma.
Thank you, Mukami Nduta. Very interesting summit at the KICC.